Hi, everyone. This is Cathy Harris. I am an empowerment and motivational speaker, non-GMO health and wellness expert, self-publishing, and business coach. I'm also an advice columnist at dearcathy.com, and I am the author of 24 nonfiction books at angelspress.com. Welcome back to our monthly masterminds, think tanks, and classrooms. Now, a mastermind meeting is the collective group of individuals coming together to talk about ideas and strategies on how to move forward around a particular issue. And what we're talking about is how to gain access to good, clean, organic foods. Now, next month, during November 2017, instead of the third Tuesday, we will have the masterminds on the second Tuesday of the month from 7 to 8 o'clock Central. So make sure that you sign up on my mailing list at www.cathyharrisinternational.com so you can be updated with what we are doing. Basically, in June of this year, we created a new movement, a new food movement, to show everyone how to gain access to good, clean, organic foods. Now, before we created the movement, I had actually released a new book, Overcoming Food Deserts in Your Community, How to Start a Home, School, and Community Garden, Food Co-op, and Food Coalition. Once I released that book, I went ahead and created a national movement, Virtual Organic Garden Clubs Movement. The website is www.virtualorganicgardenclubs.com. Now, this movement was actually created by the Essential Women's Movement for African American women. Now, this is a new movement that we created this year in January. It's a movement for African American women to come together to share information, to see how we can help each other move forward. Now, when we initially launched the Essential Women's Movement for African American women at essentialmentors.com, we held weekly masterminds for at least 3 or 4 months. The women that participated in the mastermind meetings were able to move forward and figure out what they really needed to do with their lives. Many of the women went on and formed their own networks. So you got to understand the significance of forming your own mastermind meeting. It's one of the best things you could do. If you have 5 to 7 people, maybe even 10 people, start meeting once a week in your own mastermind. Again, it's the collection of a group of individuals coming together to share ideas and strategies on a particular topic. And again, what we're doing, we're talking about how to gain access to good, clean, organic foods. Now, what I'm going to do today, I'm actually going to give you guys a 45 minutes to a 1-hour seminar. The name of the seminar is How to Start Your Own Gardening Journey. Some of the subtopics that we are going to be discussing is why you should grow your own foods, how I got started growing my own foods, top 10 steps to get started, why first-time gardeners give up, how I stay motivated, and some of the mistakes we made and some of the things that we did really, really well. Now, when I got started growing my own garden, you got to understand, just because I grew up on a farm did not give me any kind of head start to start this journey, because I grew up on a farm as a young girl, but when I got ready to do my own gardening journey, I knew nothing about growing food. So first of all, you need to understand that up front. I knew nothing at all. First of all, you need to figure out why you should grow your own foods, because chances are this is going to be the deciding factor of should you do this or not. So some of the reasons why you should grow your own food is it tastes better, you save money on your grocery bill, you can fight diseases and keep down doctors' visits, it's better for the environment, and you want to grow foods that are safe to eat, that are non-GMO. So let me go over that list again of why you really need to be thinking about growing your own foods. First of all, if you grow your food, it tastes better. You save money on your grocery bill. You can fight diseases and keep down doctors' visits, and it's better for the environment. And if you grow your foods, you know that these foods are safe and they are non-GMO. So these are just some of the reasons you have to tell yourself why you want to get started growing your own foods. Now, the first thing when you decide to grow your own foods, you don't want to overwhelm yourself. So for many people, all they do to get started is they get 2 or 3 pots and containers and start growing their foods in pots and containers. Now, what we did was we put up a 4x8 raised bed garden, which was about 12 inches deep. So what we're talking about today is a raised bed garden, but we also grew foods in pots and containers. And you can see all that information and what we did to grow our foods in pots and containers. You can actually go to the website at www.cathyharrisgardenclub.com. And it's going to show you some great information on how we got started. So again, you do not want to overwhelm yourself. So decide from the very beginning how you are going to grow your foods. The easiest way to grow foods is to grow the foods in a raised bed garden or in pots and containers. Now, there's other ways to grow food. There are permaculture, where you're dealing with ecosystems, and there are hydroponics that you can also engage in. But 2 of the easiest ways right now, if you want to get out there and start growing fresh, raw, organic foods, is to grow your foods in a raised bed garden or to use pots and containers to grow your food. So you want to figure this out early on. How are you actually going to do this? Now, you're going to have a lot of uncertainty. When I got started, there were so many questions that I had. So one of the things I did, I went on Google all the time and I read some of the gardening articles on Google. I went on YouTube and looked at some of the videos on YouTube. Then I formed my own garden club. I went to www.cathyharrisgardenclub.com on a blog, and I actually formed my own garden club to get started. So again, you have to figure out how you're going to get started, where you're going to get this information from on how to move forward. That's going to help you figure out how to grow your particular foods. You want to gather all your tools. Now, if you're going to do a raised bed garden, you got to figure out how are you going to prepare the soil. Are you going to use a shovel, a rake, or a hoe? Or are you going to rent a tiller from a garden center? So you have to figure out early on what kind of tools you need and how you are going to get started. Now, a lot of people choose raised bed garden simply because you can move these gardens and put these gardens in sunlight. You're going to need anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sunlight every day if you have a raised bed, especially in the summertime. So it's going to be important for you to put these raised beds in the right areas. So you want to pick the right spot. Now, if you can look out your back window, your side window, or a front window and see your own plot of land, then you're all set to do your own raised bed garden. Otherwise, if you have a patio, a balcony, a rooftop, a kitchen, or some other room in your home, you can actually use pots and containers to grow your own food. Now, once you get up to raised bed, you need to decide if you're going to use weed barrier paper that's going to stop the weeds from coming up, because weeds coming up in a garden is a big, big issue for many gardeners who try to get out there and grow your food. Now, one of the trainers at the gardening centers told us not to use weed barrier papers. That way, the earthworms could come on up and mend in with the garden. However, if you know that you're going to have a weed problem, I advise most of you to go ahead and use the weed barrier paper, which is 100% degradable. Once the paper melts into the ground, then the earthworms and the other creatures are going to be able to come up and get in your garden. So we use the weed barrier paper, so that's what we plan on doing in the future. We're going to continue using the weed barrier paper. Now, once you get the garden up, after the weed barrier paper, you're going to go ahead and look at the topsoil. What kind of topsoil are you going to use? You could go to Home Depot, you could go to Lowe's and other gardening centers and use some topsoil, or you could just buy your soil from one of these specialty stores that specialize in good soil with good nutrients. That's what we did. We went to a place in Austin called G.O. Growers, and we actually picked up our soil for our raised bed. And that was a good choice that we did when we actually did that. So I'm going to go ahead now and talk about the top 10 steps to get you started growing your own foods. Now, as I said, in June of this year, I released a wonderful book. For those of you who are not familiar with growing food at all, you really want to read my book, Overcoming Food Deserts in Your Community, How to Start a Home, School, or Community Garden, Food Co-op, or Food Coalition. The book will get you started, especially for those of you who have never grown any food. It's going to give you some great information on how to move forward, or you might just want to go ahead and join a food co-op or a food coalition. But that book, like all of my books, can be read by 12-year-olds and above. So you want to check out my website at www.angelspress.com. Again, www.angelspress.com. I have about 5 or 6 books on health right now, and my latest release, Overcoming Food Deserts in Your Community, How to Start a Home, School, and Community Garden, Food Co-op, and Food Coalition, is a good read for those of you who are trying to figure out how do you get started growing your foods. Now, you also want to go ahead and make sure that your kids, other family members, friends, neighbors, and colleagues read that book also. Now, when I started my gardening journey in June, it was my goal to eventually write a book about my gardening journey, and I am almost finished with that book. We probably are looking at a release date of December or January. The name of that book is going to be A Beginner's Guide to Starting Your Own Gardening Journey, How I Built a Raised Bed Garden and Grew Foods in Pots and Containers. So that's going to be a nice book. It's going to be a very simplified version of how to put up a raised bed garden and how to grow foods in your pots and containers. So again, the book should be coming out in December or January. The second step to actually get started with your gardening journey is create a movement. What I did was, again, we created a movement around how to grow your own foods entitled Virtual Organic Garden Clubs Movement. What we're doing now, tonight, we're holding a mastermind meeting. So every month we come together. People from all over the country call in. A lot of people call in just to listen in. They don't say anything because they just want this great information. So we created our own mastermind meetings, masterminds, which are also think tanks and classrooms. Now, there are 2 types of garden clubs. You can have a garden club specifically for flowers, one for plants, and also one for herbs. So for those of you who are interested in just growing flowers and not really growing your food, again, there is garden clubs out there for everything. So you just need to figure out what type of garden club you're actually going to join yourself or form yourself. Now, you could go to meetup.com. It's a group on the internet, and figure out how you can start the monthly meetings your own self, a monthly garden club, a group that can come together either online or in the community. So again, you could use meetup.com and form your own garden club, or you could do like we did. You could hold your monthly masterminds, your think tank, in your classrooms. The website for our movement, again, is www.virtualgardenclubs.com. virtualorganicgardenclubs.com. Now, if you want to form your own online garden club, you can actually use the phone number at www.freeconferencecall.com, www.freeconferencecall.com, or you could go to www.zoom.us. Now, those are two video platforms on the internet that you can actually use to form your own garden club. So you need to figure out how are you going to stay motivated, how are you going to continue in your gardening journey. The third step to get started is to know what region you live in. Now, certain regions allows you to grow certain foods. So if you live in one region, you're not going to be able to grow the same food as people are growing in another region. That's what you need to understand. So you need to find out what region you live in so you will know exactly what kind of foods you can grow in that particular region. Now, I'm dealing with a local gardening group here locally. That's where I learned what I can actually grow locally here in my area. So again, you want to find out what region you live in so you can figure out what foods to actually grow. Now, some of the regions you have longer food growing seasons, and some of the regions you have short food growing seasons. So you have to figure out your region, what you can actually grow in that region. And all of that information is on the internet, especially on google.com. Now, the fourth step to get started growing your food, you need to make a list of all the food that you enjoy eating. So when you get ready to start your own gardening journey, you actually want to grow foods that you already eat, that you already like to eat. You want to grow these foods first, and later on you want to grow other foods to maybe sell at a farmer's market, to a catering company, to a restaurant, or to a roadside stand. But initially, you want to go ahead and grow the foods that you really like. Number 5, learn where you can grow foods. Again, you need to figure out where you are going to grow these foods. Again, if you can look out the back window of your home, the side window of your home, or the front window of your home and see your own plot of land, then you need to put up a raised bed. You have all the opportunities to put up a raised bed. However, if you don't have the space for these raised beds, you want to go ahead and look at growing foods in pots and containers, on patios, balconies, porches, rooftops, and in kitchens and other rooms in your home, pots and container growing. So understand that. Now, a lot of the soil because a lot of the soil have thin soil or it don't have a lot of nutrients, sometimes you're going to be forced to grow with these raised bed gardens. You need to understand that. So that's why a lot of people do have the raised bed garden, because the soil itself was tested, and maybe the soil had a lot of heavy metals contamination or other reasons why people were advised not to grow their food in their soil. So again, raised bed gardening is going to be a great way to go. It's going to be a very easy way to grow your own food. Number 6, set up jobs programs through food co-ops and food coalition. Now, if you know the young whatever that you cannot grow your own food, you might have to go ahead and just join a food coalition or a food co-op and grow your own food through these particular venues. There's nothing wrong with that if you have to go those routes. Now, if you're dealing with a food coalition, some of the problems are going to be not having effective leaders, lack of volunteers. You know, we need people to volunteer to grow food, but they eventually need to be paid. Lack of participation from churches. A lot of churches have land, but they refuse to give up the land to grow food. And also, a lot of the colleges also have land. Now, you can become a gardening consultant and get out there and meet your clientele at these particular garden centers, or you can meet them at your home. They will come there, show you exactly what to grow, when to grow, and how to grow it. They will help you put up the raised beds, and they will also show you how to grow foods in pots and containers. So being a garden consultant is a very viable career right now, because there's a lot of people who do want to grow food, but they just don't know how to get started. Number 7, set up garden-based education in schools. No matter what you're doing right now, whatever we are doing, we have to make sure that our kids are involved. Now, the school boards are the group that's going to be able in a position to approve garden-based education in schools. So you need to get friendly, make friendly with school board members and the PTA to see if we could get garden-based education in schools. Number 8, look for local organic food groups. Now, the way that I found my local gardening club, gardening center, was I went on google.com. I put in the word organic, then I put in the word natural, then I put in the word gardener. And because of that, I was able to find this local group that I'm dealing with. I'm over there every 2 weeks for classes. There is a male instructor and a woman instructor, so it's great having two perspectives when it comes to growing your own garden. But all the questions that I've had, they've been able to answer all my questions. I bought most of my materials right from the Natural Gardening Center. So again, you need to find these particular groups in your city. You need to deal with these people because they're going to alleviate a lot of stress and worry when it comes to growing your own garden. You also want to look for local health and whole food stores. Now, before you can actually get all your food up and running, it might take a whole year. Meanwhile, you need to gain access to good, clean, organic food. Now, that food in Walmart is of poor quality, so it's important for you to check out health and whole food stores when it comes to purchasing good quality food. Number 10, gain help from other resources. Now, the USDA have a lot of websites with how-to videos on garden-based learning. However, we don't want to be dependent on the government, so it's going to be important for you to look at forming a self-sufficiency movement with your family, your friends, your neighbors, and your colleagues. So again, you want to check out the information that the government offers, but at the same time, you have to get this information implemented in your life so you could go on and do your own thing. You could go on and form your own food co-op with your neighbors or with a relative, or you could form your own food coalitions, or you could just grow your own food and sell your own food at farmers markets, at restaurants, at catering companies, and from roadside vendors. So you need to understand that. So now let's talk about first-time gardeners. Why is it the first-time gardeners give up? Some people go out there, they say, okay, I'm going to start this garden, but after the first season, but especially after the first year, they just give up. As a matter of fact, 40% of people choose not to garden after the first year. 40%, that's pretty alarming to know that these many people actually walk away from the whole gardening process after the first year. And I could kind of bet you the reason that a lot of these people walk away are probably because they just didn't gain enough access to enough information on how to carry out the process in the first place. Now, some of the reasons that they probably walked away from the gardening process is they didn't have any harvest. They had crops, they planted these crops, and they probably didn't have any crops that actually yield a harvest. So therefore, they said, well, if I can't grow my food, there is no sense in doing this. But I could kind of bet you that they did not get out there and do all the research that we needed to figure out how to grow their foods in the first place. So you don't want to give up simply because you don't get any harvest coming in the first season, the second season, anytime during that first year, and you really don't want to give up. You really want to get a mentor, or you want to go to one of the natural gardening centers and ask them to come over to your house. You can pay them money, and they will work with you and show you how to grow this food. Now, a lot of people gave up because they didn't have enough space. Now, a lot of people who are living in condos and other areas, they just figured they don't have enough space to grow their food. Therefore, they need to be growing foods in pots and containers. So you don't want to give up simply because you did not have enough space. Some people had to travel. Now, some people who travel back and forth, unless you got relatives or friends coming into your home to water your food, or coming into your backyard or front yard to water your raised bed garden, it might be hard for you to grow the garden. However, you need to put up some kind of irrigation or water drip system, especially if you're going to be traveling. So don't let the fact that you travel stop you from growing your own foods. Don't let that. They even have businesses now that will actually come to your home and water your food for you. So again, don't let the fact that you travel stop you from growing your own food. Too much work. A lot of people just found gardening to be too much work, because once you get the food out there growing in the garden, there's a lot of maintenance you're going to have to do. You're going to have to go out there once or twice a day. You're going to have to water the yard. You're going to have to put up fences. You're going to have to do all kinds of things. So it can become a lot of work. But don't let that stop you from growing your own foods. Also, waited too late. Now, a lot of people want to grow their own foods. However, they have waited too late, and now they're sick. They're in a position now that they cannot get out there and grow this food simply because they waited too late. They wanted to grow their foods in order to improve their health, but they waited too late. Now, when I went on tour when I went on tour this year, I went to 8 states. And when I was on tour, I looked at all the manicured lawns all over the place, nicely manicured lawns. But so many of these homeowners were too sick to actually walk to the mailbox and pick up their mail. This doesn't make sense for you to have the big yards where you could be growing all of this food, yet you rather have the manicured lawns versus being in a position to grow your own food. Now, I just don't see how that can make sense. It might make sense to some people, but it just did not make sense to me. So again, you don't want to wait till you get so sick to the point where you can't even water your own foods. Now, I'm going to go over how I stay motivated. For those of you who've been a part of my network since 1998, you've been reading my newsletters, you've been looking at my videos, you've been seeing some of the things we are doing. You're one of my clients. I work with a lot of clients in my business. So if you want to call me for a consultation, call me at 512-909-7365, 512-909-7365, or email me at Cathy@CathyHarrisInternational.com. Again, I am working with clients, showing them how to grow their own foods, how to start their own business, and other things that I'm doing with my clients. So check out my website at www.CathyHarrisInternational.com. But the way that I stayed motivated in my gardening journey that I started on June the 14th, 2017 was I got family involved. Now, my mate and I, we are both senior citizens. We got together later on in life, in my late 50s, and he was in his late 60s. Couples getting together late in life need to do things together, and this gardening journey has actually brought us closer together. So we both are growing this food. We're motivated while we're growing this food, and we're having a great time. So again, you have to get family members involved. My daughter is now growing food on her back porch. I'm trying to convince my other daughter to grow food in the house because she don't have a back porch and she don't have a a lawn, so I'm trying to convince her to start growing foods in pots and containers. So again, once you start growing food, when you get your kids, your family members, your friends, your neighbors, and other people involved, it is going to be contagious. I'm telling you. At first, I wasn't sure if my partner was going to be in this like I was in it, but he is so excited now to be a part of what we're doing together. So first of all, to stay motivated, you want to get your family members involved. Next, I attended regular gardening classes. Again, I found my garden center website on the internet by Googling them. I put in the word organic, then I put in the word garden, and then I put in the word center. And I also put in the word natural. And because of that, they came up on Google, and I started attending regular classes over there. So I'm over there every couple of weeks learning how to grow my own food. And the more knowledge you have, the easier this whole process is going to be. So again, you want to join a gardening class, or you want to start your own gardening club. I started CathyHarrisGardenClub.com initially, and I've been putting articles, I've been putting videos on that particular blog. It's my own garden club, CathyHarrisGardenClub.com. Now next year, I hope to do more in the community with that particular garden club. Now, you also want to release a new book or something around growing your own food to keep you motivated. So once I released my book, Overcoming Food Deserts in Your Community, How to Start a Homeschool or Community Garden Food Co-op or Food Coalition, I was able to create a national movement behind the release of my book. So we created virtual organic garden clubs.com. Again, virtual organic garden clubs.com, and all of this kept us motivated. After that, I created the monthly mastermind meetings, masterminds, think tank, and classrooms, and you can do this too. So every month, the third Tuesday of every month from 7 to 8 Central, we actually have a mastermind meeting, and everyone is invited to be a part of our masterminds. Now, around the release of my book and around the formation of the new movement, I actually launched a new national tour as a speaker, author, and a coach. I went to 8 cities and launched the Cathy Harris tour, and our main topic that we were discussing on my tour was how to gain access to good, clean, organic foods, how to start your own gardening journey. So again, you can launch a national tour around the release of your book, around the release of a movement, or just around the release of a gardening journey. You want to do what you can to stay motivated. So that's what I did to continue to move forward. Now, I'm going to go ahead, before we finish up here, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the mistakes we made and some of the things we did right. Again, we created the gardening journey in June of 2017. So after the 90 days, we were really ready to go ahead and write the book to show people how we got started. And again, the book is going to be so easy to read and follow if you want to put up a raised bed garden or if you want to grow foods in your pots and containers. The name of the book, again, is going to be A Beginner's Guide to Starting Your Own Gardening Journey, How I Built a Raised Bed Garden and Grew Foods in Pots and Containers. Now, some of the mistakes we made was we did allow rats to get into the garden, but that was after like 60 days after we had the food out there, the food had grown, we had ate a lot of the foods, and when the Hurricane Harvey came about, it actually rained for 4 days in my region, 4 days. So we had all this rain, flooding in my particular region. And for those of you who have never grown food, what you need to understand is if it floods or if it rains in your region, all the snakes and all the rats are going to come out of their bed simply because they're looking for food. So again, be ready for that. Now, had it not never rained, had we not never had Hurricane Harvey, there is a good chance that we never would have saw the rats. Now, my mate has kept them under control by putting out rat poison around the fence and around the garden bed. and therefore we haven't had any more rat poison. We still got food that's continuing to grow until the frost hits. So once you put up the raised bed garden, you want to go ahead and let that food continue to grow until the frost hits. So understand that. Now, other mistakes we made when I initially went out looking for these seed packets, and buying the seed packets, that's going to be one of the first things you're going to do, and it's really going to keep you motivated once you start looking for seed packets. You really want to make sure that the seed packet states that they are organic. However, if they're heirloom seeds, a lot of the heirloom seeds that were passed down from years to years, some of them from 100 years ago, they're not going to have the word organic on it. So if some of these seed packets don't have the word organic on it, it does not mean that they're not good seeds. You need to understand that. If you are buying these seeds from a reputable dealer, then chances are you're still going to have good seeds. Now, when you plant the seeds, you want to make sure that you're putting more than one seed in a hole, because in case one or two of those seeds might not have any value to it, you're still going to be able to get some kind of plant coming up. And if you plant too many seeds in one particular spot, what you can do is shave off the seeds once the seedlings come up. Now, it doesn't mean you need to pull it up from the root, because if you pull it up from the root, you can actually destroy the root. So again, you just want to shave off a couple of the plants once you get the plants coming up as a seedling. One of the biggest problems with these seed packets, a lot of the packets are going to tell you to space the seedlings out 4 to 6 inches. However, if you're going to have this big, bushy, leafy green vegetables, there's a good chance you need to spread these foods out even more, maybe anywhere from 12 to 13 inches, because you don't want the foods hitting each other as they grow. If they do, it's going to stunt their growth. So you want to be careful spacing foods or your seeds too close together. That's a big problem with when you start your own raised bed garden. You want to space out your seeds for enough so that they don't hit each other as they grow, which again is going to stunt their growth. Now, be careful planting fruits and green foods in one garden bed. We went out of town for 1 week, 7 days, and when we came back, our watermelons, cantaloupes, and honeydew melons had the vines that had just took over the entire garden. So next year, for sure, we are never going to plant fruits in the same garden beds as our green foods. So you want to be careful of this. Use the right type of soil. Now, we made a good choice by going and buying good quality soil. Home Depot, Lowe's, and other garden centers, they do have organic soil. So if you don't have access to these specialty soils, you can go in Home Depot, Lowe's, and the other gardening centers, but you want to make sure that your soil is organic. Also, you want to use fertilizer. Even though my mate kept getting on to me because he kept saying that I was wasting my money by using this fertilizer every 2 weeks, it's highly recommended. I don't care what kind of soil you have, you are supposed to use fertilizer in your garden every 2 weeks. So understand that. Even in your pots and containers, you're still supposed to use fertilizer every 2 weeks if you want a good, healthy garden, or again, pots and containers. Now, if it's too hot in your particular region, certain foods are not supposed to grow in over 80-degree weather, then you need to use a shade cloth or you need to use row covers. So if you need to use these things, go ahead and use these things. Now, that was a big problem with us. We did not put out shade cloth, and tomatoes, they don't grow in over 80-degree weather, so we had issues with our tomatoes, and there was one other food, and I can't even think of it right now, that we had issues with, and it's probably because it was too hot. So we should have used the shade cloth, and we should have used the row covers. Now, we're looking at our winter crops right now. We're getting ready to grow our winter crops right now. We're going to be growing beets, spinach, lettuce, cabbage, broccoli, Swiss chard, kale, cauliflower, mustard greens, turnip greens, and strawberries. We're also going to be growing 4 herbs: sage, cilantro, parsley, and rosemary. Now, sage and rosemary is good for your brain. That's why I want to grow those particular herbs. Parsley is good for water weight gain, and cilantro is good for heavy metals. So I have my reasons for wanting to grow certain foods. And again, all of these foods are my blood type foods. So these are the foods I actually eat for my blood type, all the leafy green foods. So I'm looking forward to our winter crops, our cool weather crops that we're actually getting ready to plant now in October. Now, if it's still too hot in my area and there's a couple of foods that I'm planting should not be in over 80-degree weather, I am going to go ahead and use the shade cloth, and I'm going to go ahead and use the row covers. So this time we are more prepared with what we need to do with our cool weather crops, because this is the second season that we are growing foods. We're still real motivated, but again, a lot of people stop growing food after that first season. So you got to figure out what you need to do to continue to move forward and stay motivated. Now, be careful when repotting. I had a tangerine tree that I'm pretty sure I killed simply because when I tried to repot the plant, I tore some of the roots apart. So you want to be careful when you are repotting your food, because you can tear apart some of these plants. Have all the material ready when you get ready to plant. If you know you're going to need fencing, if you know you're going to need bird scare tape or these other things that you know you're going to need, you need to go ahead and have things ready up front so you can stay motivated as you get out there and grow your garden. Now, don't harvest the food too early. There was some of the food we actually picked too early. You need to go in the grocery store and look at that food so you can figure out when you are supposed to pick that food, when it's supposed to be ripe. You could go on Google.com. You could go and look at the food on YouTube. You can even smell the food. A lot of this food, you can smell it and tell if it's ripe. Like our honeydew melons. We had issues with the honeydew melons. Even though they were big as everything, we never really got any ripe honeydew melons out of our garden. So next year, we're going to try them again next year, and we're going to see how it goes next year. Like I said, you're going to lose food. Some things are going to die, but don't get discouraged, because we had more food grow and ended up on our plate than more food that died. So therefore, we were successful in our gardening journey. So it all depends on how you look at success. But again, don't get depressed or stressful simply because you lose some of your food, because you are going to lose some of your food. Now, what we did right now, one of my plants, a lemon tree, was actually in a pot and looked like it was kind of dying on us. So I took a leaf off of it and I took it to the Natural Gardening Center, and they looked at the leaf under a microscope and told us that we was overwatering the plant. Now the plant looks beautiful. Once we cut back on the water, it's actually in the house now, in the sun, in the window, in the house, and it's growing beautifully. I can't wait for us to get lemons on that tree. Because I eat lemons every day, so I knew this was one of the foods I really wanted to grow, was a lemon tree. And right now, the lemon tree is doing absolutely great. Now, set up a water drip or irrigation system. Again, when you do these raised bed gardens, you got to make sure that you're going to have access to some kind of water drip system or irrigation system. Now, when we got ready to go out of town, we were able to put out this water drip system, and it worked really well. We was out of town for over 2 weeks, and because we was gone, well, maybe we was out of town a little bit over a week. However, though, we were able to maintain the garden. The water drip system worked absolutely great. So, again, you just need to figure out how you are going to be able to water your food once everything starts growing. The food tastes absolutely great. You know, eating this food, is true that when you grow your own food, it tastes better. It tasted so great. The watermelons, the cantaloupes, the cherry tomatoes, the cucumbers, the Swiss chard. The food tasted so good. So again, it's going to be important for you to grow your own foods simply because the foods taste better. You save money on your grocery bill. You can fight diseases and keep down doctor's visits. It's better for the environment and to grow your foods that you know are safe and non-GMOs. I want to thank everybody for listening tonight to this seminar. This has been a seminar on how to start your own gardening journey. Now get ready for my new book that's going to be released either in late December or early January, A Beginner's Guide to Starting Your Own Gardening Journey, how I built a raised bed garden and grew foods in pots and containers. So this is going to be a great book that's going to come out. It's going to simplify the whole process of how to grow your own foods. Now check out my website at www.cathyharrisinternational.com. I am currently kicked off of Facebook. Now I do a lot of posting on Facebook, but however, you really need to be on my website. You really need to go to the website and sign up so you don't miss a minute of what we're doing in this particular movement. So again, you want to go to CathyHarrisInternational.com and sign up for my mailing list. You also want to check out our women's movement at www.essentialmentors.com. The Essential Women's Movement for African American Women at www.essentialmentors.com. Now, you also want to check out the movement, Virtual Organic Garden Club's movement. The website is www.virtualorganicgardenclubs.com. Again, www.virtualorganicgardenclubs.com. Now, earlier this year, I had went to 8 cities, and right after I got back, I had my 61st birthday. So I have been so busy this year. But now I'm getting ready to start back up the Cathy Harris Show. So if you want to be a guest on my radio show, you can email me at Cathy@CathyHarrisInternational.com or call me at 512-909-7365. Again, 512-909-7365. Now, last year we had a couple of forums on breast care and womb care. We're also getting ready to write a couple of books on how to take care of your womb and how to take care of your breast. Those are going to be 2 of my next books coming out after I put out my gardening journey book. So again, if you don't know anything about gardening, you want to go ahead and check out my book that was just released, Overcoming Food Deserts in Your Community, How to Start a Home, School, and Community Garden, Food Co-op, and a Food Coalition. Now, the link for the Cathy Harris Show is www.blogtalkradio.com/The Cathy Harris Show. Again, www.blogtalkradio.com/The Cathy Harris Show. Go on that link and listen to some of my prior archived radio show. There's some great shows there. Now, we've got everything up on YouTube, so also go to my website and click on Cathy Harris TV. We got a lot of great videos up on YouTube, so you can learn how to grow your own food, so you can figure out how to continue to move forward. I'm so excited to be in this position to help you with your gardening journey. Make sure you join us next month in November 2017. Our masterminds, think tanks, and classrooms will be on the second Tuesday of the month from 7 to 8 o'clock p.m. So go to our website again and join our mailing list at CathyHarrisInternational.com. Thank you so much for listening in tonight to our mastermind meeting. And next time, we won't just have a seminar. We'll actually have participants participating in our mastermind. So we want you guys to call in on our particular mastermind so we could talk to each other, share information, come up with strategies and solutions on how to move forward. Thank you so much, and make sure you tell everybody about what we're doing. Again, the website is CathyHarrisInternational.com. Thanks so much.